into the household, whoever has the power, whoever has the position, if you understand that the point of your power is to protect the powerless and to use it in service of others, my goodness, there is your mutual submission. Rather than all the power games that happen, and the yelling and the screaming and all that happens, mutual submission is out of the window. So the scriptures have something to say to children, has something to say to how they regard their parents. It has something to say to husbands, what they do with their wives, how they relate to them. It also has something to say to what parents do or fathers do regarding their children. And that's where we want to go. So, here it is. Children, are you paying attention? Everybody should be paying attention because everybody is a child, somebody's child. Pay attention. Children, actually, there's an exception. This verse applies to those children that are still living at home. Okay? So if you've grown up and moved on and moved out, maybe not so much, but still pay attention. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is what? You know, it's amazing. I mean, there are some things in the world that are just right. You know? This is right. This is right. It is the right thing to do to obey your parents. Honor your father and your mother. Here is why this is important. Your parents have something very important for you. Very important for you. It is for your good. It is life-giving. It'll give you peace. It'll cause your name to be recognized among your peers. It will make your life much better. It is something that your parents want to give to you. Listen now. But you cannot receive it. You cannot receive it unless you have a disposition of honor towards them. Unless you have a disposition of honor towards your parents, that is, you listen to them. That is, when your parents speak to you, it is not like your peer chatting with you online. When your parents speak to you, it's like, Mom, Dad, I didn't think about it this way. In fact, I wouldn't have done it that way, but because you ask. Because you ask. Honor your father and your mother. If you honor them, then you are going to be open. There isn't anything magical about this. This is pretty straightforward. They have things they want to share with you. There are things they want to give to you, experiences to share, teachings, insight, wisdom. And unless you're open to them in obedience and in honor, it simply won't come through. Why? Because you write them off. Right? Isn't it amazing? Some of us, our parents, all of a sudden became the smartest people in the world as we got older. Did you realize that? Isn't it amazing? They tried to tell us. We were not open to them, and so we ended up in so much harm and mayhem in our own lives until all of a sudden we are open. Oh my gosh, they were right. This is why honoring your parents is important. Whatever they have for you, you cannot receive it. You cannot receive it for your own good unless you are open to them. Unless you honor them. Then it's like all of a sudden the connection is there. The highway is open and there's a back and forthness that happens. But you have got to be open to your parents. Now, it's not all on you, children. It's not all on you. But think about it. We just talked about why it's important to honor your parents. We're going to move on to, how do I do this here? You know, what I'm going to share with you now affects all fathers. And I think we will admit today that fathers come in so many different stripes and situations today. For example, there are fathers who are raising stepchildren, correct? Are you with me? There are father figures. Maybe you got involved in, say, a mentoring program in the middle school and you have become a father figure to somebody. It's important. There are people that are involved in raising children that they may not have biologically fathered. And let's be honest and face it, there are people right here in our town, people that I know who are at home today with two fathers. Somebody has to raise that child. I'm speaking to that man today as well. What are fathers supposed to do with their children? Here, I have to tell you a story. See, when our first daughter was born, Betty, she was so cute. Aren't all kids cute? I remember holding her in the hospital in Evanston, Illinois, and it seemed to me that somebody had just opened a door in my heart to a whole new place I didn't even know existed. And as a family, we decided that we would breastfeed Betty. We. Hello? What do I have to do with breastfeeding? So very, very early in the beginning, when Betty was crying in the middle of the night, all I had to do, if that, was just to wiggle my elbow, dig my sharp elbow into my wife's side, and she was the one who got up and fed her because she was the one who was equipped for it. Then I became lazy. I could have changed a few more diapers. I could have rolled on the floor with her more. But because Anna was the one who was feeding her, I did less and less as a father. I did less and less. And then we decided we were going to homeschool. And guess who the teacher was going to be? Anna was going to be the teacher. I was in grad school, and more and more and more she was involved. And it seemed to me, as I look back, I did less and less as a father. I was not nearly as involved as I should have been. Not nearly as involved as I should have been. And that right there is the key word, regardless of how you found yourself as a father today. The key word is involvement. Involvement. Effective dads are what? Involved dads. Can't do this from a distance. You have to be involved. Have to be involved. Find out their interest. And I'm telling you, I know it's hard. It is hard. Because even when you manage to be at home at the same time, these days everybody has a screen that they are staring at. And if they don't have a screen they're staring at, they have those white earbuds in their ear. Everybody is watching a show, and you can hardly get in word edgewise and connect with them, but you have got to find a way to be involved, because effective dads are involved with their kids. There are only two things the Bible asks for from fathers. Only two things. Not complicated. I'm going to tell it to you real quick. Fathers, it says, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. Two things. Let's talk about them real quick. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. What does it mean to exasperate? It means to frustrate. In another version, it says, do not provoke them to anger. Provoke them to anger. That is to frustrate them. Now, why is that? Why is that? Because, you see, the end game regarding our children is the relationship itself. So if we frustrate them, I'm going to give you some examples of how we frustrate them. If we frustrate them and the anger turns into bitterness because they can't talk with us, and the bitterness destroys the relationship, what do we have left? We don't have anything left, right? Somebody said the other day, and don't forget, these are the people who are going to be picking out the nursing homes. Come on, you guys are supposed to laugh with me here. So don't frustrate them. Don't exasperate them. Here's an example of how we might exasperate our children. You say one thing, and you do something else. That'll do it. That'll frustrate them. You come down hard on them. Remember how much power fathers had back then? You use all your power to come down hard, and you make unreasonable demands of them. You yell at them, you scream, you embarrass them. You make promises and you break them. That will exasperate them. That will provoke them to anger. Now that's important. Because if you've been a father or any amount of time, you know that the children are going to get mad at you. They are going to get mad. Something is going to happen, they're going to get mad. But just make sure that it's not because you have been unreasonable. You have been unfair. You have acted out of anger. You've used your power to impose upon them. Just make sure that that's not why they're mad. If they are mad, let it be because they now understand that, you know what? When I act in a certain way, my life gets affected. Here's an example. Here's a child whose name will go unmentioned, who knocks on his dad's door and says, Dad, I just remembered, I have a homework due tomorrow. I have an assignment that they gave us several weeks ago, and I need some supplies from the store. Oh boy. Well, you know, I happen to have a pretty long day tomorrow, and I was determined to go to bed early tonight. So I'm going to have to turn in. But I know you figure a way out of this. Very kind, very gentle, go to bed. Might he or she be upset? Yes. But at who? Let them be upset at themselves. Not me. But when you come at it with anger and long lectures and a lot of power, then we're giving them something for them to be mad at, and that person is me. And the sad part is, while they are mad at me, they don't learn anything about their own behavior because they're looking at me, not themselves. See? So do not exasperate your children. Effective dads are involved dads. Instead, it says, now this one stopped me cold. It says, fathers, instead, bring the children up in the training and instruction of the Lord. The first thing is don't frustrate them. That's the first thing. The second thing is fathers, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. Hold on for a second. I thought mothers were supposed to do all the training. Did you see that? I thought guys were supposed to stay out of it. No. Right there. We are supposed to be involved. Bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. That word, bring them up, raise them, it means to nourish. Like you would put water on a plant. Like you would put fertilizer. like you would put energy into something to make it blossom, to make it grow. Nourish. That's what it means to bring up, to raise up. Sure, it begins with physical things. We need roof, we need transportation, we need food on the table, but those are the physical things. What else do our children need from us, dads? To be ready, well-nourished, and raised up in the world. What else do they need from us? I took one of my daughters out for a drive the other day. She's learning to drive, you know. And after a lot of prayer and trepidation, we decided to try 69 highway. Not just any part of 69 highway. I mean 69 highway between here and Fort Scott. But we had to go in the day, first of all. Go in the day. I sat next to her. I said, now, look at the marks on the road, see? Those marks come in very handy, especially when it's dark at night, because those marks reflect and they let you know which way the road is bending. When there's a car coming towards you and they have lights that are shining in your eyes, don't freak out, look at the lines and just stay in between the lines. If you make a mistake here, daughter, none of us will make it. And I thought about this verse. Bring them up in the instruction of the Lord. Somebody has to get in there and intentionally teach them. Teach them. Teach them. Because I tell you, there is a YouTube video on it. If you're not talking about it, they'll find out. She has read a story or two about whatever subject you do not want to talk about. They will find out, and that's how they are going to learn. So that night we took another drive, going to Kansas City this time. Oh boy. I said, you know what? Let me drive between here and Fort Scott, because that gets a little scary. We got to Fort Scott and we exchanged drivers, and I sat next to her. And she drove on the double highway between Fort Scott and Kansas City, all the way to Union Station. Very proud of herself. And while she drove, we talked. We talked about all sorts of things. And I kept thinking about this verse. Somebody has to be in there to nurture them. And that duty is placed on you, Dad. You have to be in there and nurture them. You have to do that. So as we end today, just know that, Dad, you are needed. I know it's tough. Hang in there, because the investment is not just about the child you're looking at today. No. It's about the generations to come. Effective dads are involved dads. And our power is not to protect our position. It is to protect those who are powerless. Amen.